First up is Dumb Money, which is telling the story of the GameStop stock phenomenon that was happening at the end of 2020 and into 2021. And I distinctly remember living through this. This is a very quick turnaround movie. I don't know, even after having seen this movie, even after having seen the, there's been several documentaries about it, I still don't know if I can fully describe what a short is in terms of financial positions and all that stuff. This movie definitely tries to explain it, and all of these things try to go on the ride and explain, why investing in this effectively like almost defunct company was actually a very rebellious and clever move on a lot of people's parts, and it's the sort of power to the people thing. Ultimately, I think Dumb Money has been my favorite sort of approach to it. I think there are going to be some very obvious comparisons to movies like The Big Short because there's a comedic take to it. It's tackling a financial issue that was pretty prevalent and pretty widely covered. And for this one in particular, the way that everyday people were able to participate in it, I think will make it an interesting story, for a lot of folks. It doesn't cover in detail some of the other sides of it. It feels very pro, again, financial power to the people, which I'm very in favor of. And, I'm all for dismantling big companies, and monopolies are horrible and all that stuff. And capitalism, eat the rich, basically, is what I have to say about this. It stars Paul Dano as Keith Gill, who was probably better known as Roaring Kitty. And he had a YouTube channel, and he was the one who was sort of leading the idea that, hey, GameStop is a good investment, and, Reddit is involved. And there's a lot of terms in this movie that, again, I'd say I don't understand them. I understand them, but I haven't had like firsthand experience in it. I didn't participate in the GameStop thing. The closest thing I got to, it felt like, was through Animal Crossing and the stonk market, but I'm digressing. So the movie does use a lot of the sort of Reddit and internet heavy terminology that surrounded the conversation at the time, but don't let that deter you, because I think the reason that Dumb Money has been my favorite sort of portrayal of all of this is the acting behind it. It's directed by Craig Gillespie, who did I, Tonya, which I absolutely love. Paul Dano is playing Keith Gill, and man, when he, this character has a day job in finance and then, goes into this internet persona, and Paul Dano did such a good job of just embodying the like moment when the stream starts and this other personality comes on, and it's a very subtle change, but I was like, ooh, he is very good at this. And it's something that real Keith Gill I'm sure actually did as well, but Paul Dano is doing a great job in this. Pete Davidson plays his brother, and then you've got this sort of cohort of rich people who, again, I say eat the rich. Vincent D'Onofrio, Nick Offerman, and Seth Rogen all play like hedge fund and super rich folks on Wall Street. You've got Sebastian Stan playing one of the co-CEOs of Robinhood, and again, this is not a spoiler or thing, but like Robinhood was the investing app, and it's still technically an investing app, that was sort of allowing microtransactions and empowering like everyone to buy just like little bits of stock and trying to make it, no fees and all this stuff. And there's a whole stuff of it. And then you got folks like Anthony Ramos and America Ferrera playing some of the sort of every people who were investing, and it shows how, their gambles paid off or didn't or all that stuff. And you've got Shailene Woodley as Paul Dano's wife. So, really impressive cast. I think it's great directing. Like I said, do I still fully understand what happened in those moments? No. Do I think it's because my brain has shut itself down a little bit to prevent myself from becoming dumb in this stuff? Maybe a little bit. Also, dumb money is not just a reference to like the amount of money. It's apparently an investing term when it comes to like individual investors versus, a hedge fund or a capital firm or something like that, where they're implying that, individuals are dumb for putting their money in this because they'll never win. And yeah, anyway, good emotional journey. I found it very funny. It's a little bro-y, which the characters at the time are. Yes, it uses a lot of the lingo, but it does it in a way that is still understandable enough. And because, again, they are following these individuals and like there's a human emotional journey for each of them, I think it makes it easier to plug in those senses. Like I said, Paul Dano is doing a great job. I certainly left the film frustrated because, tiny spoiler, but again, it's a real life thing that happened. I don't think it was as revolutionary as it could have been. And the movie does help explain why. The one thing I wish they had talked more about was the consequences for the people who did make a lot of money, but didn't consider short-term capital gains penalties, or not penalties, but if you sell a stock and you haven't owned it a full year, you're going to pay a lot more, and a lot of people weren't prepared for that. So, that's just this is a sort of glossy version of the power to the people of it, and then the unfortunate reality of living in a capitalist society that where these centralized companies have all the power. But again, overall, I had a good time. The most surprising thing about this film for me is that the Winklevoss twins were executive producers of it. And if you're, for whatever reason, unfamiliar, the Winklevoss twins are twins who went to Harvard at the same time as Mark Zuckerberg, and they claim that he stole their idea to create a social networking service that, is Facebook. They're also rowers, and they are super into crypto. So I understood why they funded this movie and why they were like, yes, individuals investing in, I don't want to say questionable, but questionable, untested or new currencies or investments is good. So take that with a grain of salt. I'm not condoning any sort of investment stuff based on this. I don't know if the film is either, but that additional knowledge did help contextualize it, for me at least. I really enjoyed the film. I'm actually going to give it a 4 out of 5. The other thing I have this week is A Haunting in Venice, and this is the third of the Poirot films from Kenneth Branagh, and I will say it is the best of them. That's not necessarily saying much, and I am trying to decide, is it his adaptations? Is it I just am not, it turns out, the biggest Agatha Christie fan? Because I don't know. I read Murder on the Orient Express after I'd seen the movie, and I was like, I actually don't like the storytelling. I appreciated the structure of it, but I didn't like the way that Agatha Christie told it. I was like, yeah, well, how can you adapt it, the way it is? But anyway, so this one takes place in Venice, so it's another boondoggle film. This is a phrase I've been using a lot lately, where actors get to go somewhere very nice and have a whatever time. And Kenneth Branagh still has directing clout, although after having seen Artemis Fowl, I'm a little confused as to how he's still getting away with the stuff. But anyway, Kenneth Branagh returns as Poirot himself. As per usual, the cast has rotated, and so it's got Tina Fey, Jamie Dornan, Kyle Allen, Camille Cotton, Ali Khan, Emma Laird, Kelly Riley, Ricardo Scamarcio, and then, of course, the absolutely legendary Academy Award winner, Michelle Yeoh. And I went into this going, if he ruins Michelle Yeoh for me, I will be so livid. And thankfully, because one, she is Michelle Yeoh and is effectively Teflon, and I don't think I could actually hate her in anything. She's great in this. She plays a medium. It's a whole thing. This one takes place, around Halloween, and this one is a little more supernatural / horror thriller than the other ones have been, which I think actually helped the film a lot. I think embracing the sort of genre structure helped the mystery along, because a lot of those films are also effectively mysteries, right? You're trying to figure out what the monster is or who's trying to kill everyone. And then if you combine that with, a detective story, there you go. Match made in, I don't know, heaven. But yes, I still thought this was not, these are just not my favorite movies. I love a detective story. I love a good case, but this one telegraphed stuff too early for me, at least. And then it goes on all these tangents and red herrings. And I, the other problem with these films is that you don't like the characters generally. Like, Poirot is supposed to be your tether into this, but I was like, I don't care what happens to any of you. And so that makes it hard to sort of enjoy these films when you're just like, just go ahead, just remain unsolved. Like, I'd be fine about it. But yeah, it was fine. If you're a huge fan of the other ones for whatever reason, I think you'll actually like this one, even though it is a little bit of a departure thematically. But if you haven't seen the other ones, I would say, I wouldn't say see this, because I just didn't think it was a great movie. But of the three of them, like I said, it is the best of the three. The settings are fine, the decoration, the settings, the costumes, whatever, they're fine, they're period appropriate, but I just didn't find myself particularly impressed. And then, there are a couple moments where I was just laughing at some of the ridiculousness of it, which was not the intent of the filmmakers, I think. But, and sometimes I'd be like, oh, go see it for Michelle Yeoh. She's not, no. Nope, unfortunately, I think this is a pass for me, but I will say at least progress was made. I just don't want to keep watching these Poirot movies, but I'm going to give it a 2.8 out of 5.